Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,
Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. You are curious to know what it was like when His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, first began the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. First, let us consider certain principles that were at play. As you all know, Srila Prabhupada began his outreach, his Western outreach. He began that in the USA. So you might wonder, we know he had the order from his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, to spread Krishna Bhakti in the Western countries. But what happened with Srila Prabhupada in India? In India, at that time, in the 50s and early 60s, Srila Prabhupada met with much frustration. You might say, why would he meet with frustration in the land of Krishna? He found that at that particular time, the emphasis was so much on technological development, industrial development, material progress. So much so that, in general, the people in India at that time did not want to sacrifice their young men, especially, for becoming full-time servitors of Krishna. The aristocratic system that used to be there in India's history was that a rich family would not consider it unusual for them to offer one of their sons for training as a sadhu. But Srila Prabhupada experienced so much frustration whenever he would ask the traditionally aristocratic, wealthy families, please, can you, I can train up your boy in bhakti and make him a first-class Vaishnava. In Srila Prabhupada's own words, he described their reaction. Swamiji, please don't touch him, He's meant for technology. Don't touch him. So, that was the nature of that time. Now you might say, does that mean that no one in India wanted to be Krishna conscious? Of course it doesn't mean that. But you see, Srila Prabhupada was thinking big. He says if he had one disease, that was it. He could never think small. He was thinking how the whole world could be Krishna conscious. So he thought that by developing a following of serious assistants in India, he would then, with those followers, spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. Now, you may know that as a householder, before taking the renounced order of life, Srila Prabhupada was engaged in business. And By his own account, as he tells it, astrologers said that normally he was meant to become one of the richest men ever in India, in the pharmaceutical industry. But somehow or other, just when such things seemed about to happen, the huge wealth, something always went the opposite way. Srila Prabhupada describes that his strategy as a householder was, in order to carry out the order of his spiritual master, he would become wealthy, and then with that influence that a wealthy person has, it's like Ambarish Das, Alfred Ford, with that kind of prestige and influence, people would listen to him. Prabhupada was thinking that, who will listen to a poor person from India? But if it's a wealthy person, a very wealthy person from India, then people will listen and hear about the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When Srila Prabhupada was in his 20s, he met his spiritual master, his divine grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. It's a wealthy person, very wealthy person from India, then he was, at that time, a university student, but he didn't want to go to meet such a saintly person because he had experienced so many frauds, and this was only in the first part of the 20th century. Still, although long ago, it seems, the question of authenticity, the question of real sadhus was controversial. So, Srila Prabhupada said, I don't want to go see any so-called saintly persons. I've seen enough of the show. I've seen enough of the sham. But his friend pushed him. No, this is a real sadhu. Let's go. So the two of them went to see Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. This is important to understand so you can see the worldwide, international scope of bhakti. The two young men sat before Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and immediately he said to the future Srila Prabhupada, you're an educated person, you know English, spread Krishna Bhakti in the English language. And the future Srila Prabhupada contested the point in a humble, respectful way. He said, until India has independence from the British, who will take us seriously? He put forth that argument. And what was his spiritual master's response? Krishna consciousness, Krishna bhakti is so important it can't wait for anything. What do you think about that? Our tendency is to think, yes, it's important, but it can wait. There must be material development, there must be financial accumulation, there must be the settling of family affairs, and then, when all that is done, we can focus on our spiritual life. But Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's point was that the number one priority in life is always to become Krishna conscious. It can't wait for anything. Independence or not, political freedom or not, economic freedom or not, the bhakti cannot wait. at that time, Srila Prabhupada took the order of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur into his heart and made it his life and soul, and was always meditating on it, how to carry it out. Later, as a householder, he was always thinking, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? You see, this is real initiation, taking the instructions of the spiritual master as your life and soul. That's the real initiation. In terms of the ceremony for initiation, that didn't happen for Srila Prabhupada until maybe 10 or 11 years later. But the real initiation was when he took the order of his spiritual master as his life and soul. So as a householder, he was always thinking, how am I going to do this? So again, his strategy was, no one will listen to a poor man from India. If I become wealthy, then people will take my message seriously. But in his own words, he described something very interesting. He said, Krishna and I had an argument. I wanted to spread Krishna consciousness throughout the world as a rich person. And Krishna said, no, do it penniless. So Krishna won the argument. He came to the USA with practically nothing. Maybe the current equivalent of a few hundred rupees. How many of you would get on a boat from India or a plane from India to land in Australia with 300 rupees? None of you would do that. So the situation in India was that, although people, of course, were pious, they didn't want to commit in the way that Srila Prabhupada wanted. They didn't want to sacrifice their energies, their time, in the way that Srila Prabhupada knew was necessary for spreading Krishna Bhakti all over the world. So therefore he came to the USA with no help from India. When Prabhupada landed in the USA, there were very few persons of Indian descent there at that time, because the immigration laws hadn't changed. That meant practically Srila Prabhupada had no help from India to rely on, financially or in terms of assistance. He didn't have the assistance that so many of you can give right now. You might take it for granted right now. Oh, we have always been here. No. In the USA at that time, there were very few persons from India compared to now. Srila Prabhupada developed his mission amongst the young men and women of America, Canada. He said that he practically had to walk through fire to start this International Society for Krishna Consciousness. What is that fire? Part of the fire is the shock of dealing with Western degradation. The shock of dealing with such lack of proper behavior. Srila Prabhupada experimented. He probed the American society, trying to find out who is most receptive for his message. He considered the wealthy, sophisticated persons of New York City. But that didn't work at the time. And then someone told him, come down to the poor section of New York City where many alternative young people were gathered. And that's where Srila Prabhupada's mission first had success. Success he didn't find in India at the time. By capturing the Western youth, Srila Prabhupada made a sensation. Even today, you can go to New York City in the famous Tompkins Square Park, and there's a tree where Srila Prabhupada began his Harinam Sankirtan. He and a few followers would chant Harinam Sankirtan at the base of this tree. And you can go there even today and you'll see this big tree in the park in Manhattan. And there's a plaque there put by the city of New York. This is where A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada started the Hare Krishna movement. So I remember in the early 70s distributing Srila Prabhupada's books in New York City. And whenever we saw someone from India, we thought, oh, certainly this person will be interested. There weren't that many of them. And indeed, these persons were very astonished to find that Western youth were dedicated servants of Krishna. Often they would be very fascinated because they were all alone at that time. And also often they would give a famous answer. Yes, yes, I know everything about Krishna. I know. I myself was a student at Yale University, and my goal there was to find the greatest knowledge for solving humanity's problems. My goal during my university days was not so much high corporate advancement, because graduating from Yale University, you don't so much worry about those things. Just like England has its tradition, Oxford, Cambridge. Similarly, USA has Harvard, Yale. So many connections are there, so much influence. The endowment fund, the trust funds that Yale University has are $24 billion. So, in my quest to find the best knowledge to solve human problems, I came up short. No matter what I studied, no matter what I researched, I saw that no political or economic solution could help humanity at its deepest level. And then I came upon the books of His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. By reading those books, I could see that this was the most intelligent person on the planet. Although I had 4 years of education at the topmost university, which currently for 4 years would cost 250,000 Australian dollars for 4 years. I could see that there was no one amongst those intellectual giants who could compare to Srila Prabhupada's transcendental genius. But I was afraid This is very exotic. This is a different culture. I loved the books, but I was afraid. This is something very alien. So what I did was I read the books, Srila Prabhupada's books, at home for 4 hours a day, 6 months straight, without ever going to a gathering like this or going to any temple. I loved Bhagavad Gita, Nectar of Devotion, Shri Upanishad, teachings of Lord Chaitanya. But I never went to any temple, any Bhakti Vriksha gathering, any home programs, nothing. For 6 months. But then one day, because I was ordering my books from the BBT mail order, so I wouldn't have to talk to devotees. One day I got a letter from the BBT mail order saying that Srimad Bhagavatam in the Western printing was about to come out. Because before that there were only the volumes that Srila Prabhupada had brought over from India. But now the deluxe Western version was coming out. And the notice described that Srimad Bhagavatam is the encyclopedia of the spiritual world. Who would not want that? How many of you have a set of Srimad Bhagavatam in your home? Raise your hands. Very good. You have the encyclopedia of the spiritual world and also the material world. It's there in your home. So I had to have this book immediately. So I decided to take the risk to go find a devotee. I could not wait to get this in the mail, so I went to where I knew devotees would gather, distributing books. Huge bus terminal in New York City. At every moment, at least 5,000 persons running this way and that way through the bus terminal. Maybe a place 10 times as busy as Central Station. Perfect spot for Sankirtan, book distribution. So I saw in the middle of the terminal floor, there was one devotee lady. So I walked past her several times to see if she would stop me. You know, there are thousands of people rushing here and there. So then finally I walked up to her and I asked her what I thought was just a normal, ordinary question. I said, "Do you have Srimad Bhagavatam?" I thought that was just a normal question. You know? A normal question that any normal New Yorker would ask. Do you have Srimad Bhagavatam? Now you have to bear in mind that before this, in my last month at Yale University, I had seen devotees on television. Last month before I graduated. And I listened to what they were saying. My flatmate and I were watching. And my comment was, these people are fools. They don't know what they're doing. They've missed the goal of life. These rules and lifestyle they're following, something is wrong here. But anyway, after I said those words, 2 months later, I was reading Bhagavad Gita. This is the mercy that comes in the form of distributing Srila Prabhupada's books. So I received that mercy. But now, after reading them for 6 months, I was thirsty for more. I had read every book I had twice. All of Prabhupada's books that were available, I had read them twice. I was hungry for more. So I went to this bus terminal and I approached this Mataji devotee, and asked what I thought was a very normal question. Do you have Srimad Bhagavatam? She was an expert book distributor. At first her eyes showed surprise, but then she caught herself and very calmly said, "Oh, how do you know about that?" And I said, "Never mind. I'm not here to answer any questions. Just tell me, do you have Srimad Bhagavatam?" But she wouldn't answer my question. "Oh, tell me about yourself, and how do you know about this book?" And I kept saying, I'm not here to talk. I just want to know, do you have the book or not? But she wouldn't answer me, and she just went on and on. And then she looked at me and said, "Since you've read so many of our books already, let me tell you that we want a new center in New York. We need a new building." And she pulled out one brochure. She said, "You would probably be very much interested in this. The new building is going to have a restaurant. It's going to have a theater, auditorium, library. This will be a place that you would love to come to." And I thought, yes, that sounds good. I could go to the library, I could go to the restaurant, and not have anything to do with the worship there. And she said, "You probably can give a donation right now." I said, "Me? Give a donation?" I just turned 22 years old. I'm supposed to give a donation? But she wouldn't let me get away. I tried to get away. I even told her, "Look, I'll leave you the money in my will." And she rightly responded, "Oh, you don't even have a will. You're 22 years old." I'd never given a penny in charity in my life. But she was very persistent. So then after 20 minutes of discussion, I said, "Look, even if I wanted to give you money, I don't have it with me. It's all at my father's house." She said, "Let's go." Oh no. I couldn't convince her otherwise. So we got on the train, went 20 minutes in Manhattan, my father's house, and he was on the 14th floor. So I made her wait downstairs on the street because I didn't want my family to see this strange girl wearing sari, white mark on the face, very strange, exotic. I didn't want to have to explain to my family, who is this? What is this? So, to make a long story short, I came down with my checkbook and I wrote out a check for $1,000, that's like $10,000 today. She looked at the check and said, "This is very nice for Krishna, but I want $2,000. I was shocked. I'd never given a penny in charity in my life, and here's this strange girl with strange clothes on. No one had seen saris, They look very strange, And also, in the early days of the Hare Krishna movement, there were no clothes from India. So for saris, the ladies would wear they looked like bed sheets. They're just plain cotton cloth. The married ladies would wear these yellow cloth, and the unmarried would wear pink cloth. So, because no one was going to India yet, and they were just like cotton sheets, dyed, and that's what they were, saris. So, people in New York had not seen much of this. It looked very exotic. So I was arguing with her. I gave you $1,000, now you want $2,000. And there was all these tall apartment buildings all around. It's New York City. And so then I know that Krishna tricked me. I heard this voice speaking in my heart. Don't you know that everyone's looking down from all the apartment buildings through the windows at you? And they're seeing you talk to this strange looking girl? Better give her what she wants. So I tore up the check and I wrote out another one for $2,000. I still didn't get any books. So 2 weeks later, I was going through the bus terminal again in order to visit friends who were still at Yale University who hadn't graduated. So I had to go through the bus terminal. And then she sees me. Oh, there he is. I said, oh no, you don't see me. But again, she engaged me in a conversation. And again, she said, you know, we should go back up to your father's house. You probably have more money. I said, oh, I argued, no, but I gave in. Now I can understand that because I had read so much of Prabhupada's books, my consciousness was affected. So even though I was protesting, I was already a marked man. So again, we went up on the train. Again, I came down with the check. I gave her another $2,000. I mean, in 2 weeks, I had given $4,000 on the street. Never had been to a temple. Never had been to a gathering. Nothing. $4,000. That's equivalent like of $40,000 today. So then she took the check and said, you know, you've given so much money. You might as well come to the temple and see what it's like. See where your money is going to. I said, oh, that sounds like a good idea. And she told me, actually, you know, you are now a life member. You can travel to our temples all over the world and stay there. I said, well, that's the first practical thing I've heard. I can see myself in London, in Paris, staying at these places. So I decided to go to the temple for the first time. And then I got some japa beads at the temple. And how did I begin to chant? 1 bead a day. I would chant 1 bead and then put the japa mala down. And next day, 2 beads, put the japa mala down. But I don't know what happened after that. After a week or 2 weeks, I was chanting a few rounds. A few months later, I entered the temple. At the time I entered the temple, I was chanting 13 rounds a day. But the temple leader said, no, you come. At that time, they didn't ask me anything about my background. Oh, you are from such and such university? Oh, how glorious. No, no one asked, no one cared. Just, here's a broom, sweep the floor. So this was very good for humility. So I was describing how there were very few persons of Indian descent in the USA at that time because the immigration laws hadn't changed. And the floodgates hadn't opened. But at that time in 1972, 73, every day at the international airport in New York, a new god from India would arrive on Air India. Every day. Swami this, Baba that, all saying, I am God, I am God. It was a daily occurrence at the airport. A new avatar would arrive every day. And doing book distribution of Srila Prabhupada's books at that time meant at least 10 times a day on the streets of New York you meet someone who would come up to you and say, "You don't understand. My guru is God. My guru was Krishna. My guru was Rama. And now he's Baba so-and-so." 10 times a day. But Srila Prabhupada told us that if we would go on distributing his books, making Harinam Sankirtan, one day all these phony gurus and sadhus would go away. And indeed, that's what happened. So as you know, after a few years, Srila Prabhupada took his first bunch of Western followers to India. This was the pizza strategy. How many of you know what the pizza strategy is? Raise your hands. You see, everyone knows what pizza is, yes? You see, originally in Italy, pizza was considered a low-class food. Did you know that? Only poor people in Italy ate pizza. But then someone had the bright idea to bring pizza to the USA. And there it became the favorite food for everyone. Rich, poor, middle class. Everyone loved pizza. So then pizza was reintroduced into Italy as the topmost food. And then it became popular amongst everyone in Italy. Again, even though it's originally from Italy, it had to leave Italy to get fame and then return to Italy as the number one food. Whereas originally it was thought to be low-class food for poor people. Now no one can understand that. How can pizza be low-class food? It's so nice. Cheese and this and that. So that's what Srila Prabhupada did for India. He brought Krishna Bhakti out of India, made it famous in America and Europe, and then reintroduced it to India. Just see, the Americans are mad after this. The Europeans are mad after Bhagavad Gita. And this is your culture. This is your book. What about you? Very clever. So that's how the International Society for Krishna Consciousness began to cover the world. The ISKCON Society became most successful outside of India and then was reintroduced into India. And now, here you all are today. Even though you're in Australia, you are serious students of Bhagavad Gita, chanting Hare Krishna. When Srila Prabhupada first came to the USA, he spoke at MIT. This is the late 60s. And that still was the time. We're going back to the time when there were very few persons from India in the USA. There were a few Indian students at MIT. Now so many. But there were just a few. So Prabhupada gave his lecture and then asked for questions. And during the question time, some young Indian students at MIT, they challenged. Obviously, they had no etiquette. At least anyone from respectable family in India knows you don't challenge an elderly person, what to speak of an elderly sadhu. But they thought, we are at MIT and we are so intelligent. So they raised their hand and they asked Srila Prabhupada, Swamiji, why have you come all the way to the USA to bring this Hindu mythology and folklore? India doesn't need this folklore. India needs technology. So what was Srila Prabhupada's answer? His answer sat the young boys down immediately. He said, I have come here to give. I have come here to the USA to give the greatest wisdom, the greatest knowledge. You have come here to beg. You have come here to beg technology. I have come to give the Vedic wisdom, the greatest treasure. They sat down, shut up. For so many years, the ISKCON congregation was 98% Western. There were a few very dedicated, full-time devotees of Indian descent. I remember, who is now, of course, the famous Gopal Krishna Maharaj. When I was a young devotee in the New York Temple, he was an executive at Pepsi Cola, marketing executive. He would come to come to the temple every morning, attend the morning program, and then put on his suit, take off his dhoti, put on suit, and go to his executive job. He was one of very few of the ISKCON devotees of Indian descent. Then what happened? The immigration laws in the U.S. changed. And sometime in the 80s, immigration laws changed. And so many persons from India were coming. And at first, the only temples, the only mandirs, were the ISKCON mandirs. So, most of these new immigrants from India would attend the ISKCON temples. Then later, they realized, where is the demigod worship? Why only for Krishna? Aren't there so many gods? Because Prabhupada's temples were offering pure bhakti, the pure following of Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita as it is, where Krishna says, Kamaisthaistair hitakana prapajantanya devata. Only those whose intelligence is distorted worship the demigods. And Krishna, of course, says, it is he himself who bestows the benefits, not actually the demigods. So naturally, some persons who did not want to follow Bhagavad Gita strictly, gradually they began to think, we'll make our own temples, and we'll have all the gods on the altar, and no need to be strict about garlic, onions. Our temples will mainly be social places. But in the beginning, there were just the ISKCON temples. Now we have that situation today where there are Hindu groups with their own mandirs and very vague philosophy, very imprecise, not following Bhagavad Gita strictly. But you see, there's always a choice. Krishna is in everyone's heart. Krishna knows everyone's desire. Those who want what is authentic need to have a place where they can come to find authenticity, genuineness. So I'm explaining all these aspects to you so hopefully you can get a feel for how things were then and how things are different now. And yes, it is true. Because of the outreach efforts of these young men and women back in the 60s and 70s, you have Krishna Bhakti all over the world. what is special about the vision that Srila Prabhupada had? You see, up until the time of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master, the traditional way of Krishna Bhakti was like the village guru system. There would be a guru or a sadhu in a particular village or a particular section of India, and he would be the sole authority. And he would accept some disciples. They would do what he said. And then when he's about to depart from this world, he would appoint a successor who would continue the village guru system. But the system that Srila Prabhupada put into action was different. It was a brilliant strategy because it recognized the coming trends of the world, in which the most dominant entities are multinational corporations. Corporations that are organized to cross borders, cross continents, and cover the whole world. So looking back now, you can see the genius of Srila Prabhupada and his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. How can Krishna Bhakti cover the whole globe with the village guru system? One person who is on top of everything. How can you manage the whole world like that? So the system that Srila Prabhupada put in place was a multinational spiritual organization in which there's not one person who's autocratic in charge, but there's a body of governing body commissioners responsible for the development of Krishna's mission on a global basis. So this is the system that we're all benefiting from. Rather than having competing village gurus, we have a system for everyone working together in harmony. As part of a global society, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. This system took root in the 60s when ISKCON was incorporated in New York. And now this system is all over the world, on every continent. My prayer, my hope is that you will all take advantage of all the devotional service done before you. And make your life successful by seriously applying your inheritance. You have a vast inheritance that you can access. You've inherited the dedicated labors and sacrifices of so many devotees that have come before us. Now please, make the most of your human form of life. Are there any questions? Maybe you have some specific questions about the beginning of ISKCON in the 70s when it was dynamically sweeping the world for the first time. Yeah?
How was your first meeting with Srila Prabhupada?
He is asking how was my first meeting with Srila Prabhupada. at the airport in New York. I, amongst many devotees, went to the New York International Airport to greet him as he arrived from overseas. It was clear for me that this person was not of this world. That is the first impression. I already knew by reading his books that the intelligence was like nothing to be found on earth. And then when seeing him upon his landing at New York, I could see this. Indeed, this person is not from this world. Please remember the pizza effect. How Krishna Bhakti was reintroduced in a powerful, dynamic way into India after first becoming very famous amongst the young Western Americans, Europeans. Then it was reintroduced into India. And now, Krishna Bhakti in India, of course, far surpasses anywhere else in the world. So that was Srila Prabhupada's brilliant strategy. And then because so many persons emigrated from India to the USA, Europe, Australia, they can take advantage of a fully developed Krishna conscious organization. Yeah?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you very much for the nice realizations on the early days of ISKCON. Actually, I was listening to a lecture, your lecture in Mayapur about, you were talking about the succession issue in the sense that the people who have to take over everything in the future and run ISKCON as efficiently and as Prabhupada would like it. Was there any other deliberation on that and any further things on that?
He is asking about future leaders. The future is here. You can all be future leaders. Just as we took up responsibility, similarly, you can also. We are trying to responsibly work together, cooperatively, in a multinational organization meant for Krishna's pleasure. Generally, multinational corporations almost always are meant for mundane profit. But this multinational organization is meant for Krishna's pleasure. In this way, everyone can see that Krishna is not simply the God of India. Krishna is Jagadishwar, Lord of the universe. And there are countless universes. So this reality, this global reality is what impresses so many contemporary persons. How it is that God is beyond all ethnicity, all nationalism. Krishna is one and Krishna is for everyone. You're actually seeing that. Whether someone is Russian or American or Australian or this or that, Krishna is for them, and you get to witness all that. This is very important for your children because they're growing up, not in India, right? They're growing up in a multicultural society. So your children will want to see how bhakti is applying to all people. Your children are going to be different than you. You realize that, don't you? Yes? Do you understand it? Your children are not going to be as traditional as some of you are. You may say to your children, please do as your grandmother in Gujarat or Fiji or Maharashtra said. But your children will tell you, but we are in Australia. So your children need to see how Krishna is for everyone. Otherwise, they'll think, oh, this is just some village folklore that our grandparents follow and our parents vaguely follow. And then, if the children ask the parents, why are you doing this puja? Why are you chanting these mantras? What's the point of it all? And the parents cannot give a clear answer, then the children will just reject. So therefore, it's so advantageous for your children to be a part of a global Krishna society. Your children will see so many persons of all different types are coming to Krishna. Australian or this or that or the other. It'll be so attractive for your children. So you have to be forward thinking. Your children are going to be different from you. All the kids are making noise back there. They will be different from you. You understand? So this is so advantageous that they can see bhakti as a global phenomenon. Krishna's for everyone. They don't have to go to school and try to hide that we are following something that's very exotic and no one else is following. No, they can go to school knowing that the whole world's reading Bhagavad Gita. The whole world is tasting Hare Krishna food. The whole world is seeing the Harinam Sankirtan. Persons of all backgrounds, all economic levels, all ethnicities. This is very advantageous. So we all want to work together to achieve these goals. Anything else? You had a question? She is from Kazakhstan. Do you know where Kazakhstan is? How many of you know where Kazakhstan is? Very few. Yeah, she is seeking to follow Krishna's instructions in Bhagavad Gita. You don't even know where the country is that she's from. Next to her, she is from Peru. I met her when she was a teenager in Peru. He is from the exotic country of California. Where there is Silicon Valley, there's Hollywood, and there's no water. Yes.
Thank you for the pastimes of Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for explaining that knowledge. Now, as you mentioned about the pizza effect, now if we tell back home that we don't eat pizza, they laugh at us. In the same way, in 70s, when youths that time started following the Prabhupada, how they dealt with their family and what was the reaction of the family.
Well, again, you have to understand, in the 70s, there were very few persons from India in the USA. So that meant for the general American public, this Hare Krishna was very exotic, very strange. Wearing strange clothes, making strange music, eating strange food. Vegetarianism, you will die, they thought. You have to eat meat to be healthy. So the reaction of many parents was shock. I know in the case of my parents, it was a triple shock because their son, their eldest son, had been a full scholarship student since he was 14. And he graduates from Yale University, and then a few months later, he's doing this exotic, foreign, alien spiritual practice. Yes, they were very shocked. My father was very upset. My mother, because mothers are attached to their sons, she thought, oh, just let him be. This is simply a phase that he's passing through. This will be a phase that lasts maybe a year. Of course, now it has been 43 years. Yes.
As you mentioned, like it was triple shock for the parents, but you mentioned during the talk that this culture of Krishna consciousness was very alien to you as well. So what is the point where the real change in heart happened, and despite coming from a different background, you adopted and accepted this Krishna consciousness?
For me, the change came because I was reading Srila Prabhupada's books. I was reading Bhagavad Gita. Reading Nectar of Devotion and loving it. That produced the change for me. And of course, upon reading the book sufficiently, I finally sought out the association of devotees. When I finally did go to the temple 6 months later, what happened? I tasted the prasad. You don't know what the Sunday feast was like in the early 70s. Minimum 13 preparations. Everything drowning in ghee. So I had never tasted such extraordinary, out of this world cooking. And then the enthusiasm of all the devotees. Everyone trying to please Srila Prabhupada. So it was the enthusiasm of the devotees that carried us through the shock of so many persons in the West who had never seen such before. Now, it's so different. I remember just last month, I had to get some document in the USA to make international travel very easy, so I didn't have to go to immigration officer like in Australia, just go to a smart machine. But I had to go through some interview to get that facility. And so I was worried, should I go in regular clothes or should I go dressed, as a Swami? So I was going back and forth in my mind because maybe I would be interviewed by an officer who was favorable, or maybe he would be a fanatical Christian and then, you know, he would impede me. So anyway, before I had to go to the interview, upon landing, I went through immigration. And as you're exiting immigration, you have to give a card to the immigration officer who's collecting them. And so I gave him my card, and he looked at me and said, "Are you a monk?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Do you do meditation?" I said, "Yes." He said, "What meditation do you do?" I said, "The Hare Krishna mantra." He said, "Oh, should I also do that?" Let's just see how things have changed. Whereas in the early 70s, everyone's eyes would be upon us like we landed from another planet. My father would make jokes about, you know, the dhotis and kurtas. He'd say, "Oh, I see this is a warm weather religion." Doesn't apply to New York. Shaved head, you know, dhoti, kurta, warm weather religion only. But finally, he made peace with me maybe 15 years later. He said, "All right, son, you can do whatever you like, just don't try to convert me." Of course, it is possible completely to fully practice bhakti and be a success in the corporate world. It's just that obviously my path was meant to engage in devotional service fully as a member of the renounced order, but we all know in Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is not a renounced order. He's not a brahmana. He's not a sannyasi. He's a family man. He's a military man. Yet Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita to him. We all have different ways of serving Krishna. I mentioned about His Holiness Gopal Krishna Maharaj. He started as a householder, marketing executive for Pepsi Cola. At that time, the early 70s, Srila Prabhupada was giving some young men sannyas initiation. And these young men in their 20s, sometimes they were excessively enthusiastic and a bit too fanatical. Sometimes. So they would come to temples and they would say to the married men, "Oh, just see, you're not doing anything. You're just a householder. When are you going to put on saffron and really do something?" I remember they were doing this to the future Gopal Krishna Maharaj. He was a householder there. So he wrote Srila Prabhupada that these brand new sannyasis, they're chastising me. I'm just a householder and not doing anything. And what was Prabhupada wrote him back? "You can tell them all that you are more than any sannyas." Because by his working, he was sacrificing everything for Krishna's pleasure. And then at the right time, around 1975, Prabhupada called him to India. "Okay, you stop your job, you come to India, help manage affairs in India." So this is what it was like in the early days. Mainly, in the 60s and 70s, there was only one adult in ISKCON. That was Srila Prabhupada. He was the only adult. It was a youth movement. full of the enthusiasm of youth and also making the mistakes that young people make. So the best thing we can do now is to combine the enthusiasm of the youth with the wisdom of the elders. The more your children can be involved in ISKCON, the more glorious their life will be. They can use their enthusiasm, their youthfulness, their intelligence, how to take ISKCON to an even higher level. Because of Srila Prabhupada and the devotees who struggled to establish Krishna Bhakti in the 60s and 70s, now your children have a chance to easily be Krishna conscious, to easily take up devotional service. So the parents should demonstrate to the children, lead the way. The parents should lead the way. Any other questions? Yes.
Did you meet that Mataji again?
She's asking, did I meet the Mataji again who took all my money? Yes, whenever I see her, I ask for the money back. She tells me I have to chase her all the way back to Vaikuntha in order to get the money. I say, come on, I can use the money now. Please give return on investment. I am very grateful to her and all devotees for making it possible for someone to emerge from the ocean of repeated birth and death. Yes.
Thanks Prabhuji for the speech, but
Speak loudly, please.
oh, sorry, yeah. So pretty much I was wondering, what made Srila Prabhupada such an attractive, source of spiritual information? What made him so appealing when he first moved to America?
He was the smartest person in the world. And the most loving person in the world. Where do you find such a combination? He could talk on any subject matter, and every word be saturated with pure love of Krishna. He said, if you want to know him, read his books. He said his books are a better way of knowing him than being with him physically. So you want to know him, you read his books. Yeah?
I just want to know how to answer this question properly. To people who ask, some of my friends, they asked, the parampara is so important for the, how do you say, to pass the authentic knowledge. And they asked, what will happen in the future if we have this big organization, spiritual organization, but we have so many amazing spiritual masters. So how do we continue parampara in maybe a matter of a few hundreds of years? Is it just going to be Srila Prabhupada and then you continue with it's just someone else?
Srila Prabhupada is the founder, Acharya of ISKCON. He will always be the prominent personality. Everyone else will be his servants. And you see, ISKCON is different in that it has a governing body that is the ultimate managing authority. It's not one village guru, but a governing board that keeps the unity of all the different centers Otherwise, things would spin off this way, spin off that way. Because the traditional tendency in India is that each sadhu has his own operation, his own math. But that is not the ISKCON way. The ISKCON way is that everything is interlinked and combined for the sake of maximum productivity, for Krishna's pleasure. Yes.
When and what was your first conversation with Srila Prabhupada?
My first conversation with Srila Prabhupada, he came to my office. I was at the BBT by that time, working on his books. And he came into my office with some devotees. And I had just read in the second canto how you greet the deities and a saintly person by first looking at the feet. So I was staring at his feet. And then I heard devotees who were accompanying Prabhupada saying, "Prabhupada, dude, this boy graduated from such and such university." I was thinking, oh no, why are they saying that? Oh, why are they bothering Prabhupada with all this mundane? I was thinking to myself, oh, don't listen to them, Prabhupada. But then I was shocked as I was staring at Prabhupada's feet when they were trying to tell him this. He responded, "What is that?" He took interest. I was very shocked. Why would he care? And then when I looked at his face, I raised my vision to look at his face. I saw he was looking and studying my office. And he noted. He said, "This used to be a kitchen." I said, Krishna's pure devotee is noticing construction details. Yes, he's seeing everything meant for Krishna's pleasure. So when I explained to him what I was doing, the service I was trying to do for his books. But you all can also make bhakti excitement. It's not simply reserved for the 60s and 70s. We can all make cooperative plans for how Sydney can become Krishna conscious. We can all work together. That is the job of the governing body commissioners, to inspire the devotees to work together to carry on Srila Prabhupada's mission. How are we doing for time?
We can rest now.
All right. What happens next?
Distribute some signing off.
All right. So I thank you all for your kind attention, and please see the great potential and how you can increase that great potential. The 60s and 70s were dynamic, and now things can also become dynamic for yourselves and for your children. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.